Imagine sending money to your daughter for rent at 11 p.m. on a Saturday, and she has it in her account in seconds. Not Monday, not 3 business days. Seconds. That's not a fantasy, and it's not a private app owned by a tech billionaire. It's run by the actual central bank of the United States. It's called FedNow, and there's a good chance your bank is already connected to it. You just don't know it yet. Hey everyone, welcome back to Money Regulation Hub. Today we're breaking down FedNow, the Federal Reserve's instant payment system that quietly went live in 2023 and has been reshaping how money moves in America ever since. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what FedNow is, how it actually works behind the scenes, how it's different from Zelle, Venmo, and old school wire transfers, who's using it right now, and maybe most importantly, what it means for your everyday banking life. Stick around till the end, because we'll also cover the one big catch that most people don't realize about this instant system. Let's get into it. Let's start with the basics. The FedNow service went live on July 20, 2023, and it's available to depository institutions in the United States, enabling individuals and businesses to send instant payments through their bank accounts. Think of it as new plumbing for the US financial system, a pipe that lets money move between banks 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, including weekends and holidays. Federal Reserve, here's why that's a big deal. For decades, the normal way banks moved money between each other was through something called ACE, the Automated Clearinghouse. ACH is reliable, but it's slow. Payments get batched together and processed a few times a day, only on business days. That's why your paycheck sometimes shows up pending for a day or two, or why a transfer you send on Friday night doesn't land until Tuesday. At the most fundamental level, FedNow provides interbank clearing and settlement that enables funds to be transferred from the account of a sender to the account of a receiver in near real time at any time, on any day of the year. No more waiting for business days. No more batch processing. The money moves, and it's done. Federal Reserve, and this isn't some side project, the Federal Reserve invested $545 million to build FedNow, and the decision to develop it followed years of public feedback dating back to 2018 and 2019. This was a slow, deliberate, heavily planned upgrade to America's financial backbone. Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve, so how does the money actually move? Let's simplify it. When your bank joins FedNow, it connects directly to the Fed's instant payment rail. When you send money to someone at a different bank, here's what happens. Your bank sends a message through the FedNow network saying, move this amount from this account to that account. The receiving bank gets that message instantly, and this is the key part. The actual settlement, meaning the real movement of funds between the bank's reserve accounts at the Fed, happens at the same time. It's not just a notification promising money will arrive later. The money is actually there. Technically, FedNow runs on something called ISO 2022, a global messaging standard that's use case agnostic, meaning it can support a wide and growing range of payment types, from person-to-person transfers to business payments. Think of ISO 2022 as a universal language that lets banks, no matter their size or system, talk to each other in the same format. ACI Worldwide FedNow also isn't trying to replace everything else. It complements existing payment rails rather than replacing them. It sits alongside ACH Fedwire and private sector networks like the RTP network run by the clearinghouse. So this isn't the Fed shutting down old systems overnight, it's adding a new, faster lane to the highway. ACI Worldwide now, when FedNow launched, it started small and deliberate. On launch day, about 35 banks and 16 service providers were on board, including major names like JP Chase, Wells Fargo, and BNY Mellon, along with the U.S. Treasury's Bureau of the Fiscal Service. At the time, Fed Chair Jerome Powell said the goal was to make everyday payments faster and more convenient for the coming years. Extreme Street fast forward to today, and the growth has been dramatic. Over 400 financial institutions have now joined the FedNow network. That includes small community banks and credit unions, not just Wall Street giants. That's the real story here. FedNow was designed so that a small credit union in rural Ohio has access to the exact same instant payment infrastructure as JP Chase. That's a genuinely level playing field that didn't really exist before. Finsley, Inc. and the transaction volume tells you adoption is accelerating fast. In the second quarter of 2025, FedNow processed $245 billion in transactions. And get this, that represented roughly a 49,000% increase year over year compared to the $492 million processed in the same quarter of 2024. Now, some of that explosive percentage is simply because the system started from such a tiny base. But even so, that's not gradual growth, that's a hockey stick. Finsley, Inc., Finsley, Inc. Okay, here's the part I promised you at the top, the catch. You'd assume that if 500 plus banks have joined FedNow, all of them can send and receive instant payments both ways, right? Not quite. While over 500 institutions have joined the network, the majority can currently only receive instant payments. Most banks and credit unions haven't yet enabled the ability to send them. Industry folks call this the receive-only challenge. Finsley, Inc., why does this matter to you? Let's say your bank is receive-only. That means someone can send you an instant FedNow payment and you'll get it immediately. Great. But if you try to send money to a friend using FedNow, your bank might not support that yet, and your transfer falls back to old school ACH with the usual delay. Why are so many banks stuck at receive only? A joint industry survey found that nearly 3/4 of financial institutions, about 73.4%, cite moderate to severe challenges dealing with legacy computer systems when trying to enable instant payment sending. In plain English, a lot of banks are running core banking software that's decades old, and rewiring it to send real-time payments safely is expensive and complicated. The biggest barrier institutions report is the perceived cost and complexity of building out that sending capability on top of their existing infrastructure. Finsley, Inc. So the honest picture is this. FedNow, the network is fast, but FedNow, the rollout is still very much in progress. It's less like a light switch and more like a dimmer, gradually brightening as more banks catch up. This trips a lot of people up, so let's clear it up. Zelle and Venmo are apps. They're the storefront. FedNow is infrastructure. It's more like the highway underneath. In fact, banks and payment apps can actually use FedNow as the rail that moves the money behind the scenes, even if you never see the FedNow name on your screen. A traditional wire transfer, through something like FedWire, is typically used for large value, often business or real estate transactions, and while it's fast, it's usually limited to banking hours and can come with hefty fees. FedNow, by contrast, is built for the smaller, everyday, person-to-person and business payments running around the clock, and depending on your bank, often with lower or no fees to the end customer, since the Fed's core service is aimed at making instant payments accessible broadly, not just to large institutions. So next time your paycheck deposits early, or a peer-to-peer app confirms a transfer instantly on a Sunday, there's a real chance FedNow, or a similar instant rail, is the invisible engine making that happen. Let's bring this down to earth. Why does any of this matter if you're not a banker? First, cash flow. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, waiting 2 or 3 business days for a transfer to clear isn't just annoying, it can mean overdraft fees or late payments. Instant settlement closes that gap. Second, small businesses. A freelancer or a small shop owner who gets paid instantly, rather than waiting days for funds to clear, has way more flexibility to pay their own bills, restock inventory, or make payroll on time. Third, fewer opportunities for certain types of fraud tied to payment delays, since real-time settlement can reduce the window where bounced or reversed payments create confusion. Though, worth noting, instant payments also mean instant mistakes. So once you send money, reversing it isn't as simple as it can be with slower methods. That's actually a trade-off worth remembering. Speed cuts both ways. And finally, competition. As more banks, especially smaller community banks and credit unions, get onto FedNow, it narrows the gap between what giant banks can offer and what your local credit union can offer. That's good for consumer choice. Let's wrap up what we covered. FedNow is the Federal Reserve's own instant payment network. Lives since July 2023, letting money move between banks in seconds, 24/7, including weekends and holidays. It runs on a global messaging standard, ISO 2022, and it works alongside, not instead of, existing systems like ACH and wire transfers. Adoption has grown fast, with over 400 financial institutions on board and transaction volume climbing dramatically. But, and this is important, most banks can currently only receive FedNow payments, not send them, largely because of the cost and complexity of upgrading old legacy banking systems. So instant payments are becoming the norm, but we're not fully there yet. For you personally, this means faster access to money you're owed, quicker cash flow for freelancers and small businesses, and a shrinking gap between what big banks and small local banks can offer. But also remember, instant payments are typically irreversible, so a little extra caution before hitting send goes a long way. That's FedNow in a nutshell, one of the biggest quiet upgrades to the US financial system in decades. If this helped you understand your money a little better, do me a favor, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow. If you're new here, subscribe, because we break down banking and financial regulation topics like this every single week. Drop a comment and let me know, has your bank started supporting instant payments yet? Have you actually used FedNow or an app powered by it? I read every comment, so let's talk about it down below. And if you know someone who's still confused about why their transfers take 3 days, share this video with them. Next week, we're diving into a topic connected to this one: how the Federal Reserve actually controls interest rates, and why that one decision in Washington affects everything from your mortgage to your credit card bill. You won't want to miss it. See you in the next one.